Welcome to the Comic Binge episode. Well, I don't know sure what episode we're on. We're on MCU fan or oh my god, it's a wrong podcast. It's been a long day, guys, for me. But welcome to the Comic Binge MCU required reading. I should want to say MCU required reading episode for Thor: Love and Thunder. Very, very excited to get on this episode for a number of reasons. I have a very special guest that I can't wait to bring him on and talk about. It's been a long time coming. I think we talked about a couple ideas we had here and there, but then I just got kind of just busy. He got busy, and I kind of thought he'd be too busy, and then I realized I had to ask one of my best friends in the entire universe to get on the show. I can't believe I haven't done that yet. So I got off my lazy butt, asked him. That was a lot of fun. So yeah, we had a lot of oh my god, yeah, I know. Sorry, I got called out by him here in a second. Anyway, I'm really excited because we're going to talk about Thor: Love and Thunder. I'm going to get the panels, kind of general ideas of the film. Then we're going to talk about some comic books where they could take the story, and I'm really excited to get into that. So today, I am your host, Paul Herman. I am joined by always my good friend Chris Clow. Chris, how you doing, man?
I'm tired. How are you?
I'm very good. I'm very good. I'm very interested what you think kind of after we saw Thor, Love and Thunder together, but we need to talk about a little bit more in general, just after the film. But one of my best friends in the world, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. David Valdez, aka Father's Figures, aka Padre. For those who don't know, Dave Valdez here, Padre, is a Instagram legend. And he goes by oh gosh, I cut it off here. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I cut this off. I feel like an idiot. This is Father's Figures. I'm not sure how I did that, but it's Father's Figures on Instagram, on Twitter. Do you have a Facebook?
Yeah, it's on Facebook too.
Is it?
Yeah.
I can't believe I cut off. I thought I had cut the name. The name was in the title, but I realized now Instagram doesn't have your title in there. That's stupid. I feel dumb now. Feel very, 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 very bad about that. Sorry, Dave. But anyway, AKA Father's Figures on Instagram. Dave is awesome. He's one of the best toy photographers in the business. Dude, I've been pimping your stuff forever, man. And look at this stuff, guys. Look at this. How amazing is this? Incredible.
I could have done it against a screen, but I did it downtown instead.
There you go. It's more real. This is very fitting for today's episode. By the way, I don't know how the hell you got that electricity through that hammer. It looks incredible, dude. That looks amazing. I love that.
I hand drew the lightning bolt, as you can tell, it's really scribbled, and then the lightning and the hammer actually just traced the cracks that were already there.
Right. So, it honestly makes me want to buy the figure. And I'm not joking. It looks really good.
That's the Figure Arts one. That's not the Marvel Legends.
Oh, well, then there you go. That I don't have to buy the figure. Never mind. But anyway, for those who don't know, Dave Valdez, as one of my very old and dear friends, we've known each other for over 22 years now.
Yeah, about 22 years.
Damn. It doesn't feel
more than half our lives,
dude. It doesn't feel like it's been 22 years at all.
Neither of us have grown up a bit.
Nope, haven't. We are essentially the same people we met when we were 18 years old.
Right.
And we could probably tell you a lot of stories and be here for all night, and only no one would give a crap. But just know that Dave and I'll have one minor story, and it's not even about me and you, like a story about our adventures. But it was a comment by one of our friends. I won't even reveal who they are, but I'll think you'll remember who I'm talking about. We were at Celebration, and this person, after seeing us hang out in a big group of people, came up to me and said, "Man, I think it's really cool how you and Dave could communicate just by looking at each other." I was like, "Oh yeah, that's right." I didn't even think about it. He said, "I see you guys would communicate just by staring and doing little not stupid nods where people are we're trying to show off that we're doing it." It was very discreet how we were doing it. And he was like, "Man, it was really impressive. You guys were just communicating without saying a thing and just kind of doing little nods." And I'm like, "Yep, we've been doing that for so long."
Yeah,
because we had to, because we were in Bible school together.
Being in class together.
Yeah, we could. Yeah, we could. we couldn't talk, so we had to like communicate through, and we didn't have. I didn't have a cell phone. I think you did. I didn't. So
I might have 2001-ish, I suppose.
yeah. Lots of great stories. Maybe one day we'll just bestow you all on this incredible journey of our friendship. But yeah, Dave and I, one of my best friends in this whole world. I'm so happy to have you on, man. It's been way too long. You're obviously gonna be on more episodes than this, but we'll do an Invincible episode one day because we definitely have bonded over Invincible many a times. So we'll get to that eventually. Anyway, everyone, thanks for joining us. Hit like, subscribe, all that crap. I hate saying that, but it does help the channel grow, and all the new subscribers, thank you. Thor: Love and Thunder. I'm going to go straight into it. Dave, I don't know your thoughts at all. I actually just forgot to ask you, what do you think of the movie? If you even seen it, I don't even know if you've seen it.
Dude,
I don't know your business. We have kids now, man.
Yeah, but I mean, the kids will absolutely just come secondary. If it's opening night for a Marvel movie, it's like that's scheduled ahead of time, and we just, we know it's time for that. Hey, Eli.
Oh, that's very nice. Okay, well, so what'd you think, man? Tell me.
It was a lot of fun. I mean, I knew going in like what we were gonna get, because going into Ragnarok, it was kind of like, man, it's just like the tone is so different. Like, I mean, having Taika directing from everything else that we'd seen. And I mean, I guess it kind of started with the Guardians of the Galaxy kind of tone, where everything's a little sillier, lot more wisecracking sort of things. I mean, a little bit heavier with that stuff.
Yeah.
And but when it came to Love and Thunder, like I was ready for that, and that's what we got. A lot of that. So it didn't hit me as hard as it would like when I was watching Ragnarok for the first time. But no, it was a ton of fun. Bale was just incredible. Stole like every scene he was in. It was interesting to see them mix in like the gore story and the story with Jane like into one thing, because those are both somewhat recent stories in the comics.
Yeah, it was. I didn't want to cover, whenever I do these MCU required readings, I always want to do like not deep cuts, like show how impressive we are, how much we know, but I want to do something that's not the obvious low hanging fruit. Like obviously the thing would be to do is let's do the Jane Foster Thor stuff, right?
Sure.
Which is good. It's very good. I mean, it surprisingly holds up and is very good, and I think it is worthy of adapting. But yeah, like I want to go into a little bit deeper stuff with that. But yeah, I'm surprised they adapted it so early on.
Right. Yeah.
So,
I mean, myself, I just want to see Bill get adapted into the movies, and
we'll get into that soon enough. But
right.
But so there's been a little bit of a backlash on the movie itself. A little bit. It had a big second week drop, which I'll be honest, I was a little surprised myself with. But I don't want to get too deep into that. But I'm just curious, what would you rank it as like kind of like in a top 20? I mean, there's a lot of MCU films in the series, so would you put it in your top 20?
Well, hold on. Top 20 leaves only 5 off the list. How many are we at?
No, dude, I'm counting the series too, though. Not Netflix, like the Disney Plus stuff.
I don't know, man. I hate ranking things. Like
that's true. Yeah,
you're just asking me this to put me on the spot.
I totally forgot. I'm like, oh yeah, you don't like ranking things. I forgot.
Just so we have the numbers clear, Love and Thunder is MCU episode number 29 in terms of the movie.
Okay. So is it in the top 2/3 of Marvel movies?
How about this? Is Ant-Man and the Wasp better? And you can't, in Bogans or Bacon, whatever his name is, you can't judge it based on that. You can't say it based on that.
This one did have Bale. I mean,
that's fair.
That's fair. That puts in the top 2/3. We'll say.
Okay. I really quickly, I didn't dislike it. I didn't love it. I liked it. I didn't. I'm not sure if you knew of how I thought, Dave, but
no, I hadn't heard at all.
No, I didn't love the movie. I didn't hate it. I thought it was solid enough, but it wasn't something that I want to go out and rewatch a lot. It just felt half baked to me. Me and Chris's wife, we all watched it together a couple weeks ago, and I told her, and she agreed. I'm like, it just feels like it's half baked. I think she said the same thing. We just felt like it wasn't complete. It was a good starting point, but it needed another draft. It felt like to me, in my opinion. So,
I
Chris,
can see that. I don't disagree with that at all. Yeah.
that's fair. Okay, right. But yeah, it's not bad. I would not say it's a bad movie by any means. It just, I will say, I thought Valkyrie was a little bit underutilized in the movie, but someone had to be underutilized, right?
Right.
So, yeah, I agree, Adam. I think that's a good point. I think I think it was a very good like family movie, to be honest. It's kind of one of those things where I think Marvel, it doesn't know what it wants to be sometimes with family movies. I feel like I could take like a young kid to that and it would be okay, whereas I couldn't say that about all the Marvel films. Which is not a bad thing. It's just reality. Chris, after Living with Love and Thunder, quickly give me your thoughts.
You can put me on the spot. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to characterize.
Let him go first.
What?
I let Dave go first. I didn't put you on the spot.
Well, but you said hurry up. So
that's fair. No, you're not wrong.
I liked Ragnarok more.
Oh yeah, Ragnarok's amazing.
I think a lot of people probably. I don't know. It was an odd watching experience, just because it seemed like it was trying to accomplish a lot.
Yeah.
And that kind of weirdly enough distracted me from it, like the structural components of it. Like a movie, ideally you don't really see those kinds of seams, but I felt like they were a little easier to see in Love and Thunder. That being said, the character stuff is what Waititi excels at, and there was never a moment where I was like not wanting to see more from the people he was showing me. I agree with you that Valkyrie was probably a little bit underutilized. The way that they kind of quasi retcon recharacterized his and Jane's relationship, I thought was interesting and probably could have used even a little bit more than we saw, just because it seemed like he tried to rationalize rather quickly why she went off the board when she did. And I think more. But that being said, you could tell that Hemsworth was having a lot of fun with it. And when that's the case, I feel like it can be a little bit infectious in a good way. And Christian Bale brought the kind of devotion that you would expect from an actor of his caliber to his part. I do question why he had to be Gore, because in the original stories, I was terrified of Gore, and I'm not sure I was really that terrified of Gore as he appeared in this movie, although there were moments where he looked like a monster, and that was really cool. Like the design was pretty great. But I also am kind of hoping that we get more from like an out and out villain. I feel like to varying degrees in the MCU, outside of like Loki and maybe the Red Skull, we haven't really gotten like an unrepentant villain in the same way as those characters. So who knows? Maybe Victor Von Doom might be able to check that box at some point in the future. But like, there were things about it that just felt a little bit off the mark, but that doesn't make it anything close to a waste of time. It was fun. It just doesn't feel like an overly necessary stop in terms of the MCU. But it also, Rachel brought something else up to me after she had lived with it a while that I wanted to run by both of you guys. And it's just like the idea that maybe the way that the MCU is structured right now, things are starting for most people anyway, starting to become a little too much like homework. We're in the 29th film. There's a lot of canon to keep track of. Is that going to pave the way for Secret Wars of some kind in the next several years? And does Love and Thunder maybe indicate that some continuity needs to be streamlined a little bit?
That's actually a really good question. Dave, what do you think? What's your take on that?
I think it's been okay. I don't know. I think they can get by with it. I think people can, for the most part, keep up with it. And it's something at this point that, I don't know, the fans will be pretty forgiving for the most part. I mean, unless it's, something bigger, but I don't know. But I generally come from a place myself where I'm more, ready to understand or try to understand what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
True. I feel like all three of us are probably like that, right?
Right.
It's like canon is usually a strength of this kind of storytelling.
Yeah. I think that, to be honest, Marvel's doing something that no one's done before, as far as as far as like film and now TV and making it all as a connected universe. They're doing what the comics did back in the day.
Star Trek had been doing it a while ago, but continue.
Well, I mean, right, but the thing is, Star Trek had like the basis would be on the TV series, right? And they're all different timelines and whatnot. Whereas like the films were one timeline and they were connected. I'm not saying that. Hold on. They're connected, but you don't have 27 films all connected, intertwining as tightly. I mean, Star Trek was connected, but it's not intertwining as much as even like what they're doing. The TV series,
to a degree, yeah, but yes. Star Trek did have 2 ongoing weekly television
and I'm not, but again, that's great.
In the same time period we're coming out.
That's great. The only difference is that you're not like these are all building towards something, and those were not always they didn't have to always talk to each other.
I'm not going to disagree with you that the MCU is certainly grander.
But my greater point is that it's like the original comic books, like as far as when it first started, when Marvel first came out in the comic book industry, it was the first time that they were using continuity as a way to say, hey, we're all in the same universe, kind of a thing. And that's really cool. And how
here I think is the broader point, though,
because I wasn't done. Let me explain.
Well, chop, Paul.
I know. The thing is, I think what Marvel is doing is unique enough to where, like in the comic books, it's kind of paving its own way, but it's also going to have it's paving its own way. It's going to have some growing pains, even though I think everyone's on board now. Initially, for just like the fans were back in the day, they're coming to that point where, like in the comic books, you almost have a lot of continuity that people are like, well, do we have too much? And you're like, do we reboot? What do we do? Right. So you're in that dilemma. You're almost, I don't think they're there yet, but you're probably about, I'd say 10 years away from realistically considering that. I don't think so now, but I'd say in 10 years, it's a make or break at that point. You can either keep going, which I think they should, but there's that, well, do we reboot like a DC or not? So anyway, continue.
I think a lot of it depends on how they're going to weave in mutants.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's gonna really, I don't know, depending on how they want to do it. Like, have they always been around, or are they a new thing? Like, are they gonna have to go back and weave some things in there from the past?
Yeah, true. Sorry, Chris. I just wanted to emphasize that.
No, those are all really valid points. Of course, I guess what I would hope from the MCU from the future, and it's actually something that we've been getting from the shows, is that, you go into a comic shop, and if you've got a pull list of like 12 or 15 books or whatever it might be, just in one universe, let's say, reading an issue of Avengers, you don't necessarily have to have read an issue of Cap or an issue of Thor to know exactly what's going on.
1,000, yeah, 1,000, yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
And with the shows, those feel self-contained while still being able to play in the larger sandbox, like a good monthly, right?
I think you're bringing up exactly what I was trying to say. Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, does Thor: Love and Thunder need to be a building block to whatever the new Avengers ends up being?
Yeah. This is the one difference, and I think you're right. Like this whole idea, like we're back to the monthly idea. Like these movies don't have to always connect to each other; they just have to be in the same universe. And I think that's where Marvel has to figure out: do they want to be in the same universe and then build towards something, or do they just want to be in the same universe so they can use those characters for like a Infinity War Endgame movie, like the big crossover movie, and then kind of go from there? I think that's where we're getting to, because think about the cosmic, the mutants, the all the Ghost Riders, or the Midnight Suns kind of aspect. They're the street level aspect. They're introducing so many different parts of the Marvel universe that you theoretically don't have to have them all connect to the same build up, like an Endgame or Infinity War. It can just be they can be their own separate things. Might be able to use certain characters but not all the same characters. That makes sense. So I think that.
Is Midnight Suns on your radar? Is that something you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I mean, well, Midnight Suns in a sense of like Ghost Rider and crap like that. I love Ghost Rider. You know
Okay,
me,
yeah.
Spirit of Vengeance is criminally underrated. I love that movie to death.
Well, yeah, but like the game, the Midnight Suns game.
Oh,
Have you seen that? Oh no.
I'm talking about Blade. Not yeah. I mean, whatever. No. Anyway, so Thor: Love and Thunder. I think we all could agree we all liked it. Maybe not all of us loved it. I think Dave liked it probably more than everybody else. It sounds like.
I'm not saying that necessarily. I feel like I would need some repeat viewings to really kind of say like, yeah.
Well, here's the thing. Here's one. I'll ask you guys both one question or the same question, and then we'll move on. But be quick. Here's my question: do you feel compelled to watch it right now in the theaters?
You mean to watch it again?
Yes.
In my like 5 years ago, me, yes.
Yes. Okay.
Just because I had more time, you know what I mean?
Fair. Yeah. That's a fair point.
But no, right now I'm not trying to get like there hasn't been many movies where I've been like, I need to go see that again in the theater.
Yeah, same. Chris?
It didn't hit me as hard as like needing to see the Batman again. Not by a long shot.
Oh God, I love that movie so much.
I did want to see Batman again.
Yeah, I did see that 5 times. I did make room for that. So,
nice.
You know, I'm just going to end on this. I think I am starting to think that, especially with the MCU films, I think that's hurting the second, the third week box office for their films. But I think it is. I mean, barring a Batman, where I think that was had a lot of critical acclaim. I think a lot of fans who are overwhelmed with all the different films and whatnot. I think they're probably like, we'll wait till Disney Plus. I can wait a couple, whatever. And I think that might be hurting their box office a little bit. And that's just my opinion. We'll see if I'm right or wrong if other films come out and they totally, their own films and they trump that. But that's where my head's at right now. So anyway, all right, moving on to today's comic books. These are comic books that are near and dear to our hearts, of me and Dave specifically. And my dog is freaking out. Bean, lay down. And it is the saga and the introduction to Beta Ray Bill, which is issues 337 to 340 by the legendary Walt Simonson. And of course, Beta Ray Bill himself is just to me, in my opinion, he is the unused hero, and I think Marvel is they're just not utilizing, both in the comics and in the movies, that he's just a breakout character waiting to happen. The way he's written, I love this character. I know this is a character that me and Dave have both loved for a long time. And I don't remember if this is a character that again, I'm not trying to be like, I do all the credit for Dave liking his characters, but is this a character I showed you to, or is this something you discovered on your own? I forgot, to be honest.
I don't remember, honestly.
Yeah,
it was a long time ago when, I don't know, probably doesn't go back more than like 10 years for me. Cause like, that's when I was really like, I need to dig into some old comics, cause I had time like to download things one way or the other and just check out some old books that I'd never read. And I'm pretty sure you were the one that told me to read the Walt Simonson stuff. And I don't remember whether or not, like, I don't think I started with Bill. I think I read stuff before that, but
okay.
But no, I gravitated towards that story immediately.
Yeah. The Beta Ray Bill is one of those characters I've always thought was interesting looking. When I was a kid and reading comic books, and he would show up here or there, I always thought he looked rad. I remember I first discovered him in a Thor annual with in the 90s, and like the Korvac saga or something like that. And he's just like in this random backup issue. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? He looks rad. That's all I knew. And I loved him, but he wasn't a character that I kind of forgot. I kind of forgot about him. And then when I bought the Thor omnibus for Walt Simonson, which I always knew that was a well-regarded run, and I've always liked the Walt Simonson's art. It wasn't until I got to that, or I read his story, where I'm like, oh, dude, he's a baller. He's amazing. And I don't know, there's just something about this character that is just so charming and endearing that I can't help but love him. And so, Chris, have you ever read these comics before by Walt Simonson?
Long time ago. Right when I started working at the comics place, but I haven't revisited them since then. I actually, I mean, as a point of shame, I haven't read the entirety of Simonson's run, and I
Oh
really
my god.
should, because every single time I absorb any of his issues, I'm really struck by
How good
just
they are.
the clarity of the artistic vision, like the fact that
Yeah.
he put so much of himself into every aspect of each of his issues just makes for a really, really engaging reading experience. And I love the way that he writes the Asgardians in general. And I laugh out loud when I read his Volstagg, and Volstagg is a personal favorite of mine. So I loved these stories. I thought that it's just a really effective way to introduce um, I don't know. I'm a sucker for the introduction of like solid allies. Like we obviously have hindsight. Like we know that Bill is a really important ally for Thor in the decades to come. But he just had such a clear vision right from the outset that you couldn't help but just love the guy. And that comes through really clearly in these issues.
Yeah, this was a series that Walt Simonson, his influence is so understated, I feel, by a lot of people. When I read, obviously he's hugely influenced by Jack Kirby. But what's amazing is he feels like the most Kirby, like the next evolution of Kirby than all the other artists I think that came after him, like even more than John Byrne. I love John Byrne. But there's something to his layouts that just, it reminds me of like a Kirby, but just it's the next evolution of that. And like when I see this, like this to me looks like Kirby, and maybe he is channeling Kirby. And obviously he's a Kirby fan. That's evident in all his work. But to me, Walt Simonson, and the one thing that was amazing about Walt Simonson is that not only is he a phenomenal artist and storyteller from like layouts. I mean, his layouts are amazing and I think are great. And like, again, like super simple stuff like this, like 2 thin panels and 1 giant panel that just, again, tells a great story of Nick Fury. I mean, Nick Fury, and this is great too, by the way. The one interesting thing about Walt Simonson and difference between him and Jack Kirby is that Walt Simonson could actually write. This dude's a good writer. I mean, like he's not someone that is going to just, draw pretty pictures and just kind of like be stale everything else. No. Walt Simonson could write a story, man. Like his dialogue is solid. I mean, he's not, again, I don't know everything about Walt Simonson, but I pretty sure he studied mostly art. He wasn't like he was a writer or anything before. He just kind of was like, oh, I'll take over the book and just write. It was pretty impressive that when an artist can do that. Cause let's be real, writers and artists are not interchangeable. Right. And just because you're a great artist doesn't mean you're a good storyteller. And obviously Walt Simonson shows he could do both. And that's what's so amazing. Dave, I'll kind of throw it to you because you're an amazing artist yourself. And I love your storytelling aspects and what you love film and you love storytelling like me, and you're a great artist. I'm curious what your thoughts of of Walt. I know you love Walt, but like, is it impressive to you as it is to me how he is such a really good writer too? Like, I mean, seriously, legitimate good writer.
No, for sure. I mean, those are the things that keep me loving these books, going back even and rereading them again last couple of days. His writing reminds me of he captures that great adventurous bravado of like Edgar Rice Burroughs, like the old Tarzan books or like the John Carter books, like where I don't know, everything just has an air of seriousness about it and just kind of like grandeur. I don't know, just the way the Asgardians speak and everything. And I love that. But then, you can turn it around and be really light, like with, the side story in this one with Volstagg is pretty funny how he's trying to tell a story about Balder, which is a pretty serious story because Balder's going through some really intense stuff. But, he's just pushing this guy down and sitting on him as he's trying to tell him this story. And it just, it can crack you up too. And there's a lot of that in the Thor run. I mean, like the whole stuff with the Frog Thor or whatever you want to call him. All really fun stuff. Did Paul disappear?
He might have, but I'm sure he'll be back. But I guess, Paul brought up a really good point just because of your own acumen as an artist, Dave. And I guess one of the things that I'm interested in is when you read this issue, or when you read an issue that you really like,
Yeah.
What takes what takes most of your attention in terms of like the ability to tell a story? And is there anything that jumps out about these Beta Ray Bill issues that you think you might be able to learn from in your own work?
With my work, it's my kind of stuff is telling a story with just one image. So I've been thinking about that reading comics. Like with a comic, you get a couple just on a one page. Even there's 5-6 images, and you string those together in a very specific way to visually tell what you are also saying on the page. So what I take from these books is poses, like the way action will move across the screen in just one shot. Like there was a shot of Thor leaving; he's just flying away from the helicarrier, and I mean there are some kind of whooshy lines that show which way it's flying, but just the foreshortening and everything, the way it's coming at the screen, it's coming at the viewer. Like that's something that is something I really need to do more of in my work. Like I try to do some more of that, like because it's easy to kind of think on a 2-dimensional plane and like the action's going left or it's going right. It's not coming at you in some ways. So that's something I think about a lot. Like, and that I was reminded of again reading these recently.
Yeah.
But the other thing that the biggest draw to me is just how cool the story of Bill is told. I mean, who he is, what he's been through, and just how unprecedented the situation is that starts the whole book off.
Yeah. No, I think the story is what I think. The reason why I think it's required reading for Marvel fans in general, if you love Thor and I think the Taika Waititi stuff, is that Walt does a great job. Like you brought up the Volstagg stuff I was listening to when I was taking the dog out. It's legitimately funny, like when he's sitting on the guy and talking the whole time. I mean, I was just laughing my butt off like the entire time. And, I thought it was really great. And I think what I love about the series so much, and I think that the whole run is incredible. I mean, I could say that this is all required reading from all the whole Thor run. But the reason why I want to pick these out is because, where you leave Thor in Love and Thunder is that he's obviously raising a child at this point. And there is a sense of, where does Thor go from here? And we did already get the tale of like someone else wielding the hammer. But now what I think is cool about what you could do with Bill is that now you've introduced that Jane can wield it. What if we got someone like Beta Ray Bill be on the wield the hammer? And what does that mean exactly? And let's say, for, obviously in the film, spoiler alert, it's not, even though in the comics, I think it's better told as far as like why Jane can wield the hammer. I did like how they were able to explain it in the film itself. That being said, I think that it'd be really special for having someone else be able to wield the hammer besides Thor and Captain America that actually is worthy. And I think there's a lot of cool substance you could do with that. And the fact that like only me and Steve Rogers could wield it. And all of a sudden you have like Beta Ray Bill, being able to, smack hammers around with it and be like, what the, I mean, that to me is a really cool an idea that that I think you could really have a lot of really cool storytelling with this character. And, the way I think you could adapt the character specifically, and Dave, I'm really curious what you think, is that Beta Ray Bill could be like Drax a little bit, but like more of a straight man, and like almost like a Steve Rogers mix a little bit of Drax in him. And I think that could be a really compelling, fun character where he's almost so serious that it's played for laughs. Like whereas Drax is more saying kind of funny things, and that's he's kind of like the straight man, but like I feel like Beta Ray Bill could be even more like a Steve Rogers, like innocent version of that, where he's really charming. And it's a fine line, but I feel like the right voice actor could just really make him really charming. And I don't know, the fact that Sif survives Love and Thunder, and she's in the end of the movie, kind of tells me that could be where they could take the story. And And if you read the comic books, it's, Sif is a way more prominent character in this than, and I love Sif, man. Dude, Sif is, I feel, an underutilized character both in films and in the comics. Comics even more so, to be honest. I mean, movies, she had, Sean brought up to me on the MCU fan show, she had a series going on at the time and, whatever, but it was cool they brought her back. But in the comic books, she is a fantastic character, especially how I think Walt really, I thought, brought her up a little bit. It's just in the 4 issues that I read, I forgot how much he did with her right off the bat. And I'm curious, Chris, you haven't read this in a while. Besides, if not Sif, what else in this run that kind of surprised you about this, what brought to it in those 4 issues that we read?
I thought that the use of supporting characters was just enough. Like Fury comes to mind immediately, the idea that Fury is a part of the inciting incident, I think, is a cool way to kick things off, and might have been, if I'm trying to put myself like in the mind of someone who's reading this when it came out, then it might have been a good way to get other readers invested if they just decided to pick up a Thor issue off the rack. Fury is written very differently today than he is here, so that took a little bit of getting used to. But it's fun, it's hearing the Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. components of Fury being used again. It was just kind of a nice little walk down memory lane. Yeah. But tonally, I thought that this did a really excellent job of bringing like the S.H.I.E.L.D. side of the Marvel Universe in with the more grandiose side that you expect from Thor, especially from this era. And it was a nice way to really bring Bill in by combining those two and making kind of a cacophony of sorts that Odin then has to make sense of. So I thought that it was just really fun all around in terms of what you would think would be like clashing tones, but no, like it all is very well organized and it's very clearly delivered to the reader, and it makes it a lot of fun.
That's a really good point. I didn't think about how he combines a lot of different tones in this series, and I don't even realize it because it's pretty seamless. And he but he's juggling a huge supporting cast. If you think about it, he's got, Thor, Sif. I won't count Beta Ray Bill because he's only in it for a minute, but Sif is a supporting character who eventually leaves, but we'll say Thor, Odin, the Warriors 3, the other characters, what's his name? Eitri. What is that? Eitri? Is that his name? Eitri, Eitri the troll. That's in the end game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You have him. You got Loki. You got Lorelei. There's tons of characters he's juggling, and he's building towards something too. I think that's the other thing I thought was really impressive, is that he's building this series all the way through, because there's definitely, a story arc for Loki. There's definitely a story arc for all these different characters that he introduced, or he's, kind of putting through the system in here. And I was really impressed. Obviously this is one of my favorite runs in all of comic books, but yeah, this is definitely where I think they could take the story, where you could have Thor, trying to act like, I'm changed, to his, new, his niece or whatever as he calls her, raising that little girl. And then all of a sudden Beta Ray Bill comes in and kind of challenges that idea of like, what is he good or is he not as good? Because Bill is pure. I mean, he is pure goodness. And I don't know. I love where they could take this character. I'll be honest, guys. I'm a little afraid that they might not be able to do a Thor Love and Thunder sequel because of how this, the reception hasn't been super great, I think, financially, and I think critically wise. It makes me a little worried that we may not see a Bill, but I feel like this is a natural way to put the character next. Dave, kind of go in a little bit of that. Where, how could you, using these stories from the comic books, how do you think they could use Bill kind of going forward in the MCU?
I think that, we've already had 2 different references to him in the MCU. We saw his face in Ragnarok. He was part of the
true
on that planet. We saw the statue of his face, so he already exists, and he's unique. So you can't say that's someone else of his race. So Bill is already in play. He's already a champion of some sorts, because why else would he have a monument to him? And when Thor went to make a new hammer, the mold already existed for Stormbreaker. So in the MCU, this story has already happened.
You're right. And yeah, and for those who don't know, Stormbreaker is actually Bill's. He's the original Stormbreaker wielder. Like, it was created by Walt Simonson for Beta Ray Bill. And now the axe itself is from the Ultimate Universe. The name came from Bill first. Bill wielded Stormbreaker, and that's where it came from, was from Walt Simonson's run, not from the MCU or the Marvel Universe, Marvel Comics. Continue, Dave.
No, I just think that if we do get Bill introduced, it doesn't have to go it doesn't have to be an origin story for Bill. I mean, we can tell his origin what's his name, the rock guy? Korg, thank you. Like the way Korg tells a backstory, something like that, just saying, well, this is kind of where Bill came from, and he's been out in the universe doing his thing.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, Stormbreaker is the bottom right panel of this page. That's exactly what it looks like. It's not as, I would say, radical or cool or badass as the as the axe, you could say. But I love Stormbreaker. I kind of love it that it's not just like the stereotypical like radical weapon. It's very comic booky and looks very unique. I love it. I love the original Stormbreaker, and I feel that that's the only Stormbreaker in my heart. Right, right, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, I love the idea that they just brought the idea of Stormbreaker into the MCU.
Sure.
But I was just like, yeah, that looks like the ultimate,
Yeah.
It doesn't look quite like. But I mean, if they decided to have Bill show up and he had a Stormbreaker that had a handle shorter, smaller, like the one in the comics, I think or maybe it was gold instead of
oh, dude. Yeah.
I mean, because Stormbreaker is made of the same stuff as Mjolnir, right?
Yeah.
But it's gold for some reason.
It's design purposes, right?
I guess. Anyway, I mean, I think they can make it work.
Yeah. No, I think that there's a lot of fun stuff you could do with Bill. And I'm trying to think, you could go with big monsters too. You have Uluk the Troll that you haven't introduced yet. That whole aspect has not been touched on, which I think would be a lot of fun. The Enchantress and Lorelei haven't been officially done in the Marvel Universe or MCU yet. You could probably include them and have that be a part of it. I'm thinking of forgetting other things, about Thor Rogues Gallery that I'm obviously forgetting, that I'm not, thinking off the top of my head, but no, there is a lot of great storytelling you could do with this. I mean, Walt Simonson's run, or the dragon character. What am I thinking of? The dragon character that you get revealed at the very end of this, the last issue of the fourth we reread, that he eventually takes on at the very end of his run. That, by the way, is incredible. The issue where he takes on the dragon, where it's all splash pages.
Yeah, so good.
So good. Yeah. But that's the thing. I mean, and you have a lot of that you could do in the story too. I mean, obviously Ragnarok heavily pulls from the Walt Simonson run with Solter and everything. I mean, and that whole, thing. I mean, there's so much they can pull from this whole, this whole arc or whole run of Walt Simonson. Chris, where would you take Bill, or in the MCU, kind of knowing the character?
I think that there is a pretty reasonable way to get him involved, and for the pre-existing Stormbreaker, if they wanted to just be transferred to him. Now that Mjolnir is back on the board, I don't think it holds that it has to stay specifically in the hands of Thor's new surrogate daughter. Spoiler alert. But I kind of like the idea of both weapons existing and Bill coming into the picture and ending up with Thor having Mjolnir returned to him, and with Bill wielding the axe. I think that might be kind of fun. But also, too, it's hard to tell where we're going, but it seems like we're on the cusp of another pretty big cosmic villain laying waste to the entire universe once again in some form or fashion. And they're going to need all the allies they can get. They've got a pretty stacked roster as it stands right now, but they could always use another heavy hitter. And considering the cosmic strengths of a lot of MCU films, really since Phase 3, I think that Bill would fit in rather easily. It might be kind of fun to introduce him first as an adversary of, I don't know, like the Guardians, before he crashes into the realms of
Guardians. I'll get to that in a second. Go ahead.
Of the Asgardian side of the universe, you know, like kind of like how he was introduced originally.
Yeah, no, totally. You brought up something I thought was interesting because you brought the Guardians, and I want to say right now that I think Beta Ray Bill you could see a different Guardians of the Galaxy team after Volume 3, after Gunn's done. Because the one thing that he said is his story is done. But the branding of the Guardians of the Galaxy will never die. The branding's been created and it will never go away. Danny Cates has a run of Guardians comic books that is it's a very eclectic team. I didn't read it all the way through. I got kind of just bored out of it pretty much, but Beta Ray Bill is a part of it. Beta Ray Bill is also part of a team called Omega Flight. Back in the Initiative Civil War era comics, which was supposed to be an ongoing, but it never got it. They made it a mini series, but he was supposed to be a part of that as well. I think that Beta Ray Bill could very well be at this point a member of the Guardians of the Galaxy going forward post James Gunn. I think there's going to be other Guardians teams. It makes a lot of sense. Or some kind of cosmic team they have. I think a Guardians team is probably where they're going to go. Because I think there's going to be some deaths in Volume 3, in my opinion. Or in either way, if there is a few members carrying over, it'd be very classic comic booky to have a new, some members of the team for the previous team stay, and then a whole new team gets introduced. But I feel like that's where he could really be showcased, not an Avengers team, but in a Guardians team or something like that, where maybe he's teaming up with Pip the Troll and Star Fox or something like that. Maybe, for that's introducing the Eternals, something like that would be kind of cool, interesting and cool. So that's where I think the future of him post or a Thor film, or maybe not in Thor film, but in a Thor, a Guardians film he could show up in. That's very possible. Any thoughts on that, guys?
Do you think that when he is introduced, he should be like a featured character, or should he just be someone like that has one scene in the movie to kind of set him up for something bigger in another movie? Like, would he have like one scene in the next Eternals sort of story?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
One scene in the Guardian story, and then like come back to him, or Sif brings him in, or something like that.
I would love if Sif was the one that brought him in.
Yeah,
that'd be cool.
Their relationship is like always been so really compelling to me.
I know, dude. Oh my god, I love Sif, dude. Sif, I reading these four comics, I'm telling you, we need to see Sif more.
Yeah,
Sif is she's a fantastic character. They could easily bring her into like a Marvel team, like Avengers or something like that, I feel, and it'd be really rad, in my opinion. I know people agree with me on this, like you, Dave, or we're Sif fans.
Underrated.
1000% underrated. I think you're onto something here. I think that, to me, he should be brought into a film and showcase what he has as a character, because I think his strength is mostly as a character, or as a character. He's charming. There's something unique about him. Case in point, Planet Hulk, the animated movie. He replaces Silver Surfer, and I immediately think that is a much better character and way more interesting character to bring in. I thought he was much cooler. Excuse me. Sorry, guys. And I loved it. There's something about this. I think there's this uniqueness. I think here's what it is. Here's what makes Bill unique. And Dave, we'll kind of wrap up on this, and I'll give you guys, you can disagree with me or not, and then we'll go kind of last thoughts. But I think what makes Bill so charming is he looks such like a monster. He looks like it kind of like he could be a bad guy, but he's the exact opposite. He's the exact opposite of this monster that you see. He's actually the most gentle, caring, loving, like gracious being ever. And that's what makes Bill, I think, so charming. Because I think with Drax, he looks kind of like he is like this vicious kind of, doofus, but he's deadly, right? Like he is what he is. Like he looks like what he looks. He is what he looks like. He's a warrior. Bill is this character that looks like he's just like he's a monster. He looks like he's gonna hurt people. That's not him. Bill is.
That's what I loved about. I mean, the way that he's introduced. Of course, like a lot of good characters, like we're terrified of him. Why is he coming straight towards Earth with the power that this ship seems to have?
Mm-hmm.
And immediately he's going toe to toe with Thor, and Thor is kind of afraid because he's so strong, and that's even before he has a hammer.
Yeah.
And then, when Odin sees all this happen, or Odin kind of mistakenly brings Bill in, but right away he's like, I can't say that you can't have this hammer because you want it. And I think the first thing is that of how impressed Odin is with him.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I had forgotten about until I read it again is that we don't really get the full kind of depth of what Bill's been through until Sif brings it up at the end. Like,
I know.
Like he didn't just sacrifice his humanity, so to speak, to save his people. He was a champion of thousands and thousands of his own people to win the honor of being completely dehumanized. I mean, and he's so humble about that. He never at one point talking to Thor or Odin, said that he was a champion who earned the right over everyone on his planet.
Yeah. Oh, so good. I forgot about. I knew he was altered, but I forgot that he had to be a champion to get to that point. Like that is, so good, so good, so good. Yeah, guys. I love Beta Ray Bill. I think this is where they could take. There's a lot of different things you could introduce him in the MCU, and I think this is where I think if they do make a Thor film, which I don't think they're going to, but if they were going to. I think this is where they go with the character. They show Beta Ray Bill be that next character. So parting thoughts. I'll let Dave have the last word. Chris, any parting thoughts before we go?
I don't know. I guess I feel like you're right. The way that you started off the conversation was saying that Simonson is a little too overlooked these days, and I am inclined to agree. All of the recent Thor runs of note, I mean, Jason Aaron's had most of the control of Thor for a lot of the past decade, but even going right before Jason Aaron, there was like Matt Fraction. And then before Fraction, you had Straczynski.
Avoid Fraction's run.
No, don't avoid Fraction's run. Fraction's run is fine.
It's bad, bro. It's bad.
It's not
okay. It's not bad. It's just not good.
I don't think that. I think you're being too harsh on it. But that suffice it to say that all of those creators owe Simonson a big debt of gratitude. He really did help to define for more modern times how you tell stories with these kinds of characters effectively, because all things considered, Thor is kind of a weird superhero property. You think about his origins in ancient mythology and how he interacts with a shared superhero universe. I mean, obviously the code was cracked first in the 60s, but how you persist that, because there's a lot of source material that even now has gone unused from the original stories, like the original Asgardian myth stories, Norse mythology. But the rich tapestry of stories that has been crafted with Thor over the past 50, 60 years, this is a high point. And if you enjoy the Thor character, then you would do well to start things off with Simonson, or revisit it, whatever you need to do. And the introduction of Beta Ray Bill, if I'm not mistaken, isn't that the first arc?
It is.
So keep going. I'm gonna keep going. I need to keep going.
Yes,
I haven't read the entire thing, and that's a point of shame because there's a lot of good stuff here that I know about, but there's also good stuff here, I'm sure, that I don't.
You're in for when Walt does, he eventually does the Baldar the Brave miniseries, which I still haven't read all the way through. Shame on that's my crown of shame. He gets a little artist named Sal Buscema to fill in for him, and like it's so good. Like Sal, you could tell him and Sal are just like riffing together. It's so cool. Like Sal's art fits perfectly to replace. Sal is like, talk about criminally underrated. Sal Buscema is just phenomenal talent. He's so good. I love everything Sal does is so good. It's so good. And his Thor, I love the way he draws Loki. Yeah. So if you're out there, again, you're gonna want to read these four comics first, and then you just like Chris, just keep going. Just keep going because he's got a long run. You're going to see a lot of Ragnarok influence. You're going to see a lot of just good stories, references that are in Walt Simonson's run. And again, he wrote it. It's not like he was the artist and then took over for a writer. No, he wrote and drew the whole thing, and it's beautiful. And I was reading the omnibus, which I hate omnibus reading, but I'm a little bummed. I think the colors, the recoloring distracts me a little bit. I wish I missed the old colors a little, to be honest. So
that was something like reading these books on Marvel Unlimited. It was just like, wow, it looks so modern, I guess. Like,
yeah, it's the coloring. Yeah,
because I still have like the old copies of the books.
Comics.
Like, man, that's just like has such a classic feel to it. I mean, it's really kind of muted, and there's pros and cons, but
yeah. I actually, if I've said this, I don't know, in the last episode, I think that Marvel Unlimited should have filters on their pages, and they should have an original coloring.
That'd be sweet.
That to me is
a big part of it was like the texture of the paper too, right?
Of course,
because the more traditional newsprint absorbed the colors differently. And the way the colors were mixed were totally different. I mean, do you guys remember reading stuff like in the late 80s, early 90s? You see the red dots on the skin is almost like
give it to me.
Pimples all across, right? But you pull back and everything looks the way it's supposed to. But no, in this, I mean, yeah, it's kind of fascinating to see. But I like that idea, Paul, because like if you go back and you play like classic video games, like if you want to play Super Mario Brothers from 1985. Then you can apply like a scan line filter so that it looks like you're playing on a tube TV, right? If they can come up with some kind of a classic comics filter for some of these older books, that might be kind of
any
fun.
filter. I mean, I know that kind of sacrilege for the colorist, but to be honest, like we're living in a digital. If you're gonna the digital age, embrace the digital age. Like you're not going to sacrifice much, in my opinion. I mean, again, the coloring's an art, but if you want things in black and white and you like that better, give them that option.
Well, there are also those other circumstances where some collected editions have the original newsprint scan.
Yeah, you're telling me,
My absolute copy of Batman Year One has 2 volumes. One is the remastered coloring, and the second one is from a high-grade original newsprint copy that replicates even like the translucency of the paper to a degree.
Yeah.
And it's cool to be able to absorb it like that.
Yeah, I think that, and again, I'm going to claim that's my idea if they ever take it. But yeah, I think there's a couple things they could do to embrace the digital age. And I think that's a big one of them, to be honest. I think that, and have it be set to where you can go up and down like this, like instead of across. Because to me, no one does this. They do this. They swipe up, when they do scrolling for Twitter, for Facebook. Modern people, young and old, are now used to swiping this. They're not doing this unless you're doing Twitter or Tinder or whatever that bull crap is. I'm married, I don't know that crap anymore.
But if you're flipping a page, you don't flip it up. So I don't
know. But like I said, people aren't, who are on social media, they're not flipping books either. They're going up and down, and you want to embrace that because I like Webtoon does that. And Webtoon's huge.
You would think it would be that hard just to have a little click of a setting.
Would you
rather
think
swipe this way, or would you rather swipe this way?
You would think.
That would be my idea. They'll pay me for that idea.
Yeah, they should. They should be paying me, goddammit. But they don't, which I don't blame them. So, Mr. Dave Valdez, thank you for joining us.
No problem. It's been
fucking love you.
Long time coming. I mean, I try to get on the show often, but
I know I don't invite you enough.
I'm glad you finally had me.
Dude, I just want you to know, like, I just thought you were busy. I was like, I don't want to bug. I didn't want to bug you because you're like, I see you with Justin just hanging out, having a blast with Hannah. I'm like, I don't want to ruin that.
I can always find time for you, man.
I know, yeah. Listen, I just kind of was giving your space to be. This is something I told him in person. I was like, I don't want to give you space, but now that I know I've broken the ice, and I've always, over the years, I've always given Dave, let's do it. Here's an idea. I have an idea. Dave's like, all right, and just kind of lets it die or either live or whatever needs to happen. But there's an idea I have right now for a future show, podcast, YouTube channel, which I'm hoping to get in the next couple months, get off the ground. It's a passion project of mine. I think it's really ridiculous and fun. So not comic related, unfortunately, but it's fun. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if me and Dave can get it done. Dave, where can people find you at?
At Father's Figures. I'm on Instagram mostly. I pop into Twitter occasionally. For my secret Twitter mostly. And then Facebook a little bit. I mean, you can always contact me in all these places and I'll get back to you. But mostly Instagram at Father's Figures, and it's Twitter, Facebook is all the same thing. Father's Figures.
And you sell prints of your stuff too. Yeah. And you do well. And obviously if people think, you sell prints of toy photography. Yeah. When you do this good, yeah, you can do that. Like, that's all I gotta say. You can, like, this is good stuff, man. Like listen, I tell you this in person, on air, off air. I'm consistently, I think you're the best in the business, and everyone else can kiss my ass. That's all I gotta say. So,
well, you can keep telling people that, but
I will not stop. Chris, next week we have our Infinite Crisis binge continuing. I'm very excited to keep going. I haven't read the issues yet, but I've embraced the binge of the Infinite Crisis.
Sweet.
So if you're interested in the DC Comics Infinite Crisis storyline, we are doing that next week, continuing that. And I'm really excited. And so yeah, we got that next week. And what else you got going on, man?
I mean, outside of this and Discovery Debrief, where we're going to wrap up our conversation for season 1 of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, that's pretty much it for the moment. But no, I'm looking forward to next week's discussion because it's JLA number 115 to 119, story called Crisis of Conscience, that was co-written by Jeff Johns and Alan Heinberg and drawn by a cool artist named Chris Batista. And it's really, when that story ends, it rolls right into the first page of Infinite Crisis number 1. So that's really our last stop. There's a lot more we could have read, but it'll be fun to finally get into the main series itself. And at the end of that discussion next week, I'll turn people to a couple of other things that if they want to read on their own, they're more than welcome to.
Yeah, we've got a big. It feels like we're just getting into the binge of the Infinite Crisis, so I'm really excited for that.
Well, and we'll do stuff after Infinite Crisis too. So
oh god,
there's a very popular, or at least now popular, like well-regarded series that took place for quite a long time after Infinite Crisis.
JSA?
Maybe start reading. No, it's got a number in it, and
No, that's what I'm talking about. Like, that's part of the binge. That's a part of it.
It's you might want to start reading. I'll just put it that way.
Next month is going to be. I've been warning Chris. We got next month's going to be crazy. I'm trying to up it. So
it's gonna be crazy, guys.
All right, you can find me, Paul, on Twitter at Herman22 with 2 N's, aka P Thug. Follow Comic Binge on the Twitter, on Instagram. If you type in Comic Binge, you'll see the logo. You'll go follow it, and again, like, subscribe, hit like. Thank you for the porn account that's been showed us electronic something. I'm not sure if that's a porn account or not. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, thank you for all coming, and we'll see you next week. Chris, take us out.
Read more comics.
Good night, y'all.